The moment I saw the document on my desk, I knew something was wrong. It was a non-compete agreement, a document you only see when they're planning a quiet corporate exit. It was placed right next to a lukewarm cup of cheap coffee and a stress ball I'd never asked for. There was no email, no warning, just the signatures of Susan, our regional director, and Mark, my direct manager. Susan, who smiled with the kind of practiced charm that didn't reach her eyes, and Mark, a man who once told me, leadership is knowing when to let the team handle it, as an excuse to leave a client meeting early. I hadn't even had my first sip of coffee when a Slack message popped up from Mark. Quick check-in before your quarterly review. The winking emoji was a blade. I was their top-performing agent at Evergreen Realty, the reason we hit our Q4 targets at all. I closed 3 major multi-year contracts, 2 of which were considered lost causes until I spent a week straight negotiating with developers in Singapore, fueled by little more than determination and a few too many energy drinks. I didn't just hit my quota. I tripled it. But apparently, that was the problem. Success at Evergreen had a ceiling, and it was shaped like Mark's fragile ego. He once told me to tone down my aggressive closing style after I saved a $1.2 million deal from collapsing due to his error in the compliance paperwork. None of that mattered now because I saw it in the agreement's fine print. Transitional termination process. And just like that, the buzzing started. That low hum you hear when your body knows before your brain does that you're about to be erased. I walked into the conference room where the walls were a sterile white and the lighting was clinical. The betrayal wore a tailored suit and an expensive watch. Susan was at the head of the table, her laptop open to a color-coded spreadsheet titled Agent Performance Risk Matrix. Mark, of course, was late. Instead, the door creaked open and in walked Chad, the new guy, the Ivy League brat they brought in for a market expansion strategy. I knew he was dangerous the moment he showed up wearing loafers that cost more than my mortgage and complimented me on my hustle. That's corporate code for "we're watching you." I had seen his calendar once, a shared invite with Mark, titled Q2 Leadership Restructuring. Now he was here, pulling up a chair to my review. Susan clicked something on her laptop and smiled. "Madeline, let's discuss your growth trajectory." I looked at Chad. He didn't flinch, just gave me that polite, predatory look, like I was a client file he'd already redacted. Something wasn't just off. It was a well-rehearsed symphony. They were planning a quiet handoff of my clients, my hard-won contracts, and my entire pipeline. Then I remembered the strangest thing. 2 weeks ago, Chad had accidentally replied all to a company-wide thread. His email signature listed him as Director of Strategic Accounts. That position didn't exist yet, but it would, because they built it from my role, my book, my blood. And the moment I realized that, I smiled. I already had a burner laptop stashed in my car. I had already registered a Delaware LLC in my sister's name. I had already called the 3 biggest accounts I brought in and asked, if I were to leave Evergreen, would you follow? All 3 said yes. One of them even asked when. I didn't say it out loud, but in that moment, staring at Susan, Chad, and the ghost of Mark's loyalty, I answered silently. Soon. The first domino fell a few hours later. I got a text from my favorite client, the VP of Operations at Renova Logistics. Just got off a weird call with Evergreen. Some guy named Chad tried to pitch himself as your strategic partner. Should I be concerned? I stared at the screen, my heart pounding like a drum. They didn't even wait. They were already calling my clients, not even pretending anymore. Chad, that smug, soft-handed spreadsheet jockey, was just the executioner. Mark was the architect. I texted her back. He's not with me. Give me 48 hours. Then I muted my email and opened the folder on my burner laptop labeled Plan B, open in case of backstabbing. Inside was a deck, a draft brand manual, and a hit list. I started calling, not emailing, not messaging. One by one. Hey Greg, it's Madeline. Listen, I'm not allowed to talk specifics yet, But hypothetically, if I were launching something boutique, leaner, faster, more tailored, would you be open to a conversation? Greg, from the biotech firm, laughed. I've been hoping you'd do that. Evergreen has been bloated for years. Click. That was one. Then Maria. Then Alan. Then Elise. By the end of the day, I had 6 soft verbal commitments. Not promises, just the kind of yes that doesn't need paperwork because it's been brewing under the surface, waiting for the dam to break. The real play started the next morning. There was one client, the biggest on our books, that Evergreen had no idea was even on my radar. I never logged the lead, never added it to Salesforce. I handled it offline through a back-channel connection from a charity gala I wasn't even invited to. That client, the CEO of a Fortune 500 that rhymes with energy dynamics, owed me a favor. Now was the time to cash it in. I sent one text. It's happening. I'm jumping ship. Want the lifeboat? No reply. Not for hours. I went to bed staring at the ceiling, every nerve vibrating. At 3:42 a.m., I woke up to a buzz. One word. Yes. By sunrise, I had my first investor, a real one. Just as I sipped my burnt coffee and flipped open my laptop, the final nail arrived. Mark's calendar invite, 30-minute check-in, opportunity for alignment. I laughed so hard, I nearly choked. While Mark was busy scheduling alignment, I was scheduling an evacuation. While Susan was printing new org charts, I was printing contracts. And while Chad rehearsed his little transition call for Jenna, who was already on the phone with her procurement director drafting NDAs under my new LLC. At 10:04 a.m., my company laptop locked me out. Remote wipe, instant, no warning, files gone, access revoked. Cute, except they didn't know one thing. I never trusted that laptop. Everything I needed was already backed up. Because I don't just close deals, I plan exits. And what they really didn't know, what made me sit there grinning like I'd won the lottery, was that I'd also recorded the entire review, audio and video, time-stamped and uploaded to a secure vault, including the part where Susan said, "We're doing this quietly to avoid triggering compliance flags," including the part where Chad said, "She'll leave quietly. They always do when you make them feel like it's their fault," including the part where spineless Mark whispered, "We need her out by June. Chad's got better chemistry with the executive team." Let that sink in. They wanted me erased by June. It was April. They gave me 60 days. I'd only need 30. You learn a lot about a company by how they try to erase you. By noon that day, my email signature had been scrubbed from outbound messages. My name was removed from pitch decks I personally built slide by slide while Mark played golf and called it strategic visioning. Chad, sweet, empty Chad, was now the interim liaison on accounts he couldn't spell, let alone manage. But the moment that sealed it, the exact second I knew they were scared, came a few hours later. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. It was Mark's voice, panicked, brittle. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Heard some things. Totally understand if you need space, but let's keep communication open, yeah? We value your presence here. Call me back." Presence. Like I was a ghost. I didn't call back. I forwarded it to my lawyer because while they were patching holes in the client dam with corporate jargon, I was already 3 floors down in a WeWork lobby, watching my new logo animate for the first time on a rented MacBook, and sipping espresso out of a compostable cup that cost more than Chad's attention span. The startup name, Apex Strategies. Tagline, because slow is broken. Our pitch wasn't complicated. Same services, better strategy, no Mark. By day 5, I had converted my manifesto into a working pitch deck. By day 6, I had a designer rebrand the site in 12 hours. By day 7, I called in a favor of a decade. My old mentor, Carla, who now ran procurement for one of Evergreen's feeder partners. Her voice, when I told her what happened. Oh, honey, you're building the ark while they're still debating rain. We had lunch the next day at a French place Evergreen could never expense. She slid a folder across the table like it was a drug deal. Inside, RFP documentation, partnership language, and a little yellow sticky note that said, "This is the first domino, pushed gently." I walked out with 3 warm leads and a handshake. Then came the whisper, a screenshot sent from a friend in compliance, bless her soul, showing a Slack thread between Susan and Mark. Susan, if she talks, we're exposed. Mark, Chad says she's bluffing. No real platform, just ego. Susan, still monitor her LinkedIn. Mark, already did. She hasn't posted. No, Mark, I hadn't. Because you don't drop a bomb during the storm. You drop it in the calm. And that calm was the upcoming Client Innovation Summit, Evergreen's crown jewel event. Every major contract in attendance, media, shareholders, and me, technically still an employee, still on payroll, still listed on the damn event brochure as Director of Enterprise Strategy. They hadn't updated the print run, and I had an idea. Not just revenge, reintroduction. If I played it right, if I timed it to the second, I wouldn't just burn Evergreen to the ground. I'd walk out of their own ballroom with their top clients, their future pipeline, and a brand new company they didn't even know existed yet. All smiling, all clapping, all signing. And that's when I started writing the speech. The ballroom smelled like ambition and over-budget hors d'oeuvres. Evergreen's Client Innovation Summit was a $400,000 PR stunt dressed in florals and fake humility. Everything was gold embossed, even the name tags. And there it was, mine, gleaming under a soft chandelier. Madeline Monroe, Director of Enterprise Strategy. Still hanging off a lanyard they paid for. Still tethered to a woman they assumed was already fading into LinkedIn oblivion. I showed up in a black suit, sharper than my exit plan, and heels that made sure I was heard before I was seen. Chad caught sight of me near the coffee station and nearly dropped his glass of oat milk like I was a hallucination summoned by guilt. He muttered something that sounded like, "Wasn't sure you'd make it." But I just smiled and said, "Wouldn't miss the funeral." His laugh was half a cough, half a fear response. They hadn't revoked my access badge. Too much chaos with the event, too many moving parts. And Susan, she was so busy schmoozing with 2 clients I'd personally onboarded, she didn't even clock that the woman walking past her with murder in her mascara was the same one she tried to erase with a non-compete clause and a cold coffee NDA. By the time I took my seat near the front row, right between Jenna from Renova and Greg from Parallax Biotech, I had exactly 7 minutes to execute the plan. The keynote speaker was Mark, of course. He strutted on stage like a suburban Elon Musk, flipping through slides he didn't understand, talking about adaptive scaling and strategic pivots, like the buzzwords were birthrights. The crowd was restless, checking their phones, whispering, because right before he took the mic, my assistant, yes, I'd hired one, scheduled a mass email. It hit inboxes at 10:27 a.m. Subject line, Introducing Apex Strategies, fast, focused, fearless. Inside, the new brand, the founding team, the partnerships already underway, and a little note signed by yours truly. I built my reputation by solving problems Evergreen wouldn't touch. Now I solve them faster. Call me. Let's make it uncomfortable for the slow. And here's where it got delicious. The footer of that email contained a link, not just to my new site, but to a private live demo room hosted 2 floors up in a WeWork suite I rented specifically for that day. 10-minute walk, free espresso, signed NDAs at the door. By 10:41 a.m., Jenna had excused herself to take a call. By 10:44, Greg said he needed a quiet space to review documents. By 11 a.m., 4 clients were gone from the ballroom. Mark was still tap dancing for applause that wasn't coming. I leaned over to the one Evergreen client still beside me, Lisa, a skeptical holdout from the insurance group, and said, "Stick around if you want a t-shirt. Or come with me if you want to grow." She didn't respond, but when I stood, she stood too. As we walked toward the exit, Chad caught up, grabbed my arm lightly. "You're breaching contract," he hissed, his breath sweet with desperation. I leaned in close and said, "No, sweetheart, I'm capitalizing on incompetence." Then I left, down the escalator, through the atrium, into a world Evergreen never built because they were too busy protecting Mark's throne and playing musical chairs with people's careers. Upstairs, the real meeting had already started, and someone was handing out pens. The pens were gold, not plated gold. Real enough that one of the clients joked, "Is this a bribe?" And I said, "No, bribes come later. These are just souvenirs for watching a company bleed out in real time." There were 7 of them now, seated in the WeWork suite under a fake fern and a vision board that still had "Launch Q3" scribbled on it from the last tenant. I hadn't taken it down. It felt poetic. Across the room, my assistant, Jade, a former Evergreen intern, poached the moment they denied her a raise and told her to be patient, handed out folders thicker than Chad's resume. Each one was tailored. Each one was precise. Jenna from Renova flipped hers open first and whistled. "This onboarding map is tighter than Evergreen's entire ops department." Greg, never one for subtlety, looked at me and said, "Are we doing this now or next week?" That's when I pulled out the piece de résistance, a tiny, elegant remote. One click, and the flat screen on the far wall blinked alive. Apex Strategies, Slide 1. Because slow is broken. Slide 2. Projected migration timeline, May 1st, fully transitioned, no data loss. Slide 3. Legal opinion on non-compete circumvention, drafted, vetted, notarized. Not that I'd needed it, but it was good to watch their eyes widen. Slide 4. A single phrase. Built by betrayal, powered by speed. I watched their posture shift. That subtle lean forward. That moment when possibility outweighs loyalty. By the time we hit Slide 8, showing our exclusive pricing model and Evergreen's padded consultant fees side by side, Jenna laughed so hard she nearly choked on a pistachio. Greg just muttered, "This is surgical." And that's exactly what it was. While Evergreen fumbled with PR fluff and outdated CRM, I'd built a weapon. Lean, fast, legal. Everything they said I couldn't do. Too aggressive, too rogue, too independent. I turned into a platform, a business, a damn invitation. The real twist wasn't what they saw on the slides. It was what they didn't know. Because sitting silently in the back of the room, behind mirrored sunglasses and a $4,000 handbag, was Carla, my mentor, my mole, and now my investor. They didn't know she'd already bought 30% of Apex Strategies through a shell corporation registered in Maine. Didn't know she'd also been whispering in the ears of Evergreen's second-tier clients for weeks. Didn't know she had 3 senior-level resignations timed like dominoes to drop the day after the summit. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her presence was the thunder before the flash. And then came the knock. 3 raps on the frosted glass door. Jade opened it. It was Mark, looking like a man who had just read his own eulogy on a lunch napkin. He stood in the doorway, blinking. I stood too. "Wrong floor, Mark," I said. "The keynote's back that way." His voice cracked just a little. "We need to talk. Now." Everyone was watching. Jenna, Greg, Lisa, even Carla tilted her sunglasses down just enough to make him squirm. I walked toward him, my heels clicking like gunshots. "No, Mark, you need to talk. I just need to choose when I press send on this statement." I tapped my phone screen. His eyes dropped. He saw the document preview. "Formal resignation from Evergreen Realty. Madeline Monroe, dated yesterday. Filed this morning." "Is that nowhere yet?" "You're really doing this?" he asked, half whisper, half frantic. I leaned in close, enough for him to smell my lipstick and regret. You put me on probation, Mark. You gave my clients to a child in designer loafers. You erased my name from decks I bled into. You wanted me gone. Congratulations. He swallowed. I stepped back, my voice rising, not yelling, but cutting. But you made one mistake. You didn't bury me deep enough. Then I turned around. The whole room applauded. By the time Mark stumbled back into his sad little conference room with his tail between his khakis, I'd already triggered phase 3, the resignations. One by one, they dropped. First was Nisha, head of mid-market accounts. She wrote me a midnight text 3 days earlier. You go, I go. She hit send on her resignation from inside the Evergreen event, didn't even finish her lunch. Then Marcus, from Data Ops, and Bella from Enterprise Procurement. All of them gone by 3:00 p.m. Evergreen's Slack went silent. Their clients got louder. Jenna texted me a screenshot of Chad's frantic group chat, labeled Client Retention SWAT. The messages were pure chaos. Where did Lisa go? Why is Greg's calendar blocked with Madeline? Who the hell is Apex Strategies? I wish I could have framed that last one and hung it above my desk. The truth is, Evergreen never knew how fragile they were. They thought culture was Pizza Fridays and HR newsletters about employee wellness. They never realized that the real glue, the actual scaffolding, was the people they underpaid, overlooked, and shoved into development plans like a pat on the head before cutting them loose. So I gave those people a plan. I offered equity, real shares, day one buy-in, no fake incentive tiers, no gatekeeping. Jade became chief of operations within 48 hours. Nisha, head of growth. Marcus, CTO. Evergreen treated us like parts. I turned us into partners. And just as the ink dried on the final onboarding packet that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Susan. Madeline, listen. We understand things got off track. Mark's been placed on a performance plan. We're making structural changes. We'd really like to open a conversation about how we can make things right. Make things right. That's what they say when they realize you took the foundation with you and left them a husk full of office chairs and false promises. That voicemail? I sent it to Carla. She laughed. You broke them before the SEC ever could. But Evergreen wasn't done flailing. That night, my inbox pinged. Subject: urgent cease and desist. They accused me of client poaching, IP theft, brand confusion. Cute. Too bad all client records I used were collected outside the Evergreen environment. All conversations were documented, all transition terms reviewed by legal. And best of all, I wasn't the one talking. Jade was. Apex Strategies wasn't owned by Madeline Monroe on paper. It was owned by Ellery and Cumbie Holdings, a shell ID formed last year when Mark first forgot to credit me in a QBR. Carla helped me build it, and now Evergreen wasn't just chasing ghosts. They were trying to sue a shadow they couldn't touch. So I did what any rational woman in my position would do. I wrote them back, short, sweet, legal. I no longer represent your interests. Kindly direct all further communication to my legal team. Or better yet, keep watching the news. And then I attached the press release. Apex Strategies raises $5.2 million in seed funding to disrupt legacy B2B infrastructure. With quotes from 3 ex-Evergreen clients and a photo of me on the balcony of our new office, with the tagline, "Sometimes the only way to rebuild is to burn first." It was scheduled to go live at 9:00 a.m. sharp the next morning on TechCrunch, Bloomberg, and yes, LinkedIn. I didn't just launch a company. I built the spectacle of their demise, and soon the whole damn industry would be watching them crumble in public. We scaled in real time, quietly, efficiently, without apology. But first, I had one more move to make, and it wasn't business. It was personal. The personal part started with an old Gmail draft titled, "If I Ever Have to Burn It All Down." It was a folder buried in a folder, hidden behind a fake label that looked like budget receipts. Inside were screenshots, voicemails, recordings, a treasure map of every microaggression, every undermining comment, every backroom betrayal Mark and Susan ever thought they'd whispered into the void. Like the time Mark emailed Chad and CC'd Susan. "We need someone who plays ball. Madeline's too alpha. Doesn't inspire team confidence." Or the Slack message from Susan during a salary discussion. "Let's hold the raise. She doesn't seem desperate to leave yet." Or my favorite, Chad's drunk voice memo, accidentally sent to the group thread after last year's holiday party. "We'll just wait for her to implode. Women like that always do." I hadn't imploded. I detonated on purpose. I started forwarding the evidence one piece at a time. Not to HR, not to legal, but to Evergreen's board of directors. Each email titled, "As requested, Evidence of Executive Misconduct. Happy to provide full affidavit." I didn't add commentary, didn't gloat, just cold surgical timestamps and source files. Carla texted, "They just called an emergency board session." Jenna forwarded me a company-wide Evergreen email marked urgent. Mark had stepped down. Susan was on leave pending investigation. Chad was still floundering in meetings, trying to explain why every major client had ghosted him like a bad Tinder date. Just when I thought I could close the laptop and pour a drink, I saw it. A Reddit thread. The post titled, "What the hell is Apex Strategies and why is Evergreen hemorrhaging clients?" There were hundreds of comments, people speculating, gossiping, calling it the cleanest coup in startup history. One anonymous poster, claiming to be a former Evergreen VP, wrote, "Madeline Monroe wasn't difficult, she was dangerous, and they were stupid." It got upvoted 4,000 times in an hour. By midnight, I had 23 new partnership inquiries in my inbox, 7 acquisition feelers, 3 journalists asking for interviews. But none of that matched the high of what came next. Jade walked into the office holding a letter, hand-delivered, no postage, unembossed Evergreen stationery. Inside, a single sentence in Mark's handwriting. "You win. Please stop." No apology, no admission, just defeat wrapped in stationery. I took it, folded it once, and slid it into a file labeled Trophies. Then I turned back to Jade and said, "Print that email we drafted." She grinned, because the final move was the announcement, the one that would salt the earth behind me. A hiring call. "Apex Strategies is recruiting. Evergreen alumni encouraged to apply." With one line at the bottom in bold. "We don't do probations, we build empires." Sunrise hit the office windows like applause. By 6:03 a.m., the hiring post was already viral. By 6:11, Apex Strategies was trending on Twitter. By 6:17, someone from Evergreen's recruiting department accidentally applied. I didn't even have time to sip my coffee before the press call started. Jade was juggling media requests like a pro. New York Times, Business Insider, some obnoxious tech bro podcast begging for the exclusive teardown. But I wasn't interested in narratives shaped by people who'd never been told to smile more while outperforming everyone in the room. So I gave my own version. One tweet, plain white background, black text, a photo of me and the Apex Strategies team under the glow of our newly printed logo, champagne in hand. They put me on probation. I built a company. Then I took theirs. Below that, a hashtag, built by fire. The internet did the rest. Meanwhile, Evergreen's shareholders were in full meltdown. An internal memo leaked to TechCrunch detailed the revenue drop. Nearly 40% of their Q3 forecast had already evaporated. Clients didn't just leave, they evacuated. Procurement offices now flagged Evergreen contracts as under review. Partners paused. Vendors demanded new terms. The brand, once smug and self-satisfied, was radioactive. But the crown jewel, the cherry-slathered gold-plated final twist. Carla bought controlling interest in Evergreen through a holding company, quietly, legally, brilliantly. 3 weeks after Mark's resignation, She walked into their boardroom wearing all white, smiled at the remaining execs, and said, "Let's restructure." Her first act, dissolve the enterprise strategy division. Her second, license Apex Strategies platform at full market rate. She called me after the vote. Didn't say a word, just played a voice memo. "Mark, she'll never make it on her own. Women like that burn out." Then she laughed, and I opened the bottle of champagne I'd been saving since the day I registered the LLC. Now, Evergreen is a cautionary tale, passed around corporate happy hours like an urban legend. Mark consults for mid-tier firms no one's heard of. Susan's coaching female empowerment workshops on Zoom. Chad went silent, deleted his LinkedIn. Rumor has it he's working on a DTC dog treat startup. And me? I take the meetings I want. I work with people who get it. I lead a company forged from ash and arrogance. We don't do toxic. We don't do titles. We definitely don't do probation. I built an empire from their paperwork, and every time someone asks me how it started, I smile and say, "They handed me a pink slip, so I turned it into a blueprint."